Now, if you have been knitting for 15 or more years, this will probably look very familiar to you. Hello, knitting friends, and welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, Kristen, and today I'm embarking on a little challenge. I'm going to try to knit a pair of socks in a weekend. So if you want to see how that goes, grab a project, stick around. Hello, knitting friends. Welcome to my little personal challenge for this video. For some reason, I decided I wanted to challenge myself to knit a pair of socks in a weekend. I don't really know why, just kind of looking for ways to add some more, I don't know, personal challenges in my life. Like, I'm not going to run a marathon or anything. That's definitely not the kind of challenge I am up for. I did include this on my knit bingo for the year, which was a part of my little yarn journal that I got this year. One of my boxes was knit a pair of socks in a weekend. And this weekend, which is last weekend when you're watching this, is the only weekend I have for the foreseeable future in which I do not have to go anywhere or do anything. Coming up, I got the anniversary of my mom's birthday, my dad's birthday. We got some goat yoga. Then we're going away. It's Labor Day. Then it's wine weekend. This is my only stay-at-home weekend for at least a month and a half. And I thought this would be a good time to try this challenge because it'd be nice to have a new pair of socks as we get into fall, which probably I'm not going to be wearing wool socks until October, but you never know. Could be September, could be wine weekend. We go up to the mountains and it can get nice and cool up there, and that is lovely. So, before I forget, unpublished kerchief pattern that maybe is going to be a pattern and coming out at the end of September. We shall see. So, I want to try to knit a pair of socks in a weekend. I wanted to do something a little more interesting than a plain vanilla sock, but I didn't want to do something overly complicated. Because again, trying to do this in what I'm calling a weekend, which is going to start Friday at 5 and go Sunday until I go to bed. The pattern I have chosen is the Clog Lite socks. This is a pattern by Summer Lee. It's a little bit shorter than a traditional sock, at least in this sample. And I will probably match more or less the length. So we're not talking like knee-high socks here that I'm trying to knit in a weekend, but it does have a little cable detail. So it's not super plain. It's not overly complicated, and it's not an overly large sock. So that is the pattern I have selected, and then I needed to pick some yarn. So originally I was thinking about this one. This is a skein of I have no idea what. It was really popular colorway in somebody's yarn probably a decade ago. And I can't remember what it is. Not a clue. It's lovely. It's these, it's like a gray silver with some green, orange, yellow splashed in there. I at some point started a pair of socks with this, didn't like it, didn't like the sock pattern. Don't know what happened to it. Still have most of a ball of yarn. So I was originally going to use this, but I thought, so as you saw in the sample photo, these have some contrast trim, and I thought I would like to do a contrast trim with this color and really didn't have anything that went with it. So I think I'm going to save these for something else. So I bought the pattern from Summer Lee, and she's got like a get a XYZ% discount when you buy 3. So I bought 3 patterns, and some of her other patterns also either would look nice in this or also use some contrast colors. And after I complete these Clog Lite socks in the yarn I have selected, I will have some leftovers that I think will go nicely with this. So this is the yarn I have selected. Now, if you have been knitting for 15 or more years, this will probably look very familiar to you. So this was a crazy popular yarn in the like 2009-ish, 2010-ish era. This is the Sanguine Gryphon Bugga. This color is Leaf Insect. The Sanguine Gryphon went out of business, I don't know, 10 years ago maybe. I have saved this. I have another skein too that has been marinating that I never used. And so this is what I am using for this weekend socks as a kind of treat for myself for the challenge, because this is a lovely yarn. I will tell you, this is actually not, it's not actually the best sock yarn, but this is why. 70% superwash merino, 20% cashmere. This pills so much. It really does, but it is so soft. It is just the softest. Love this color. Works better if you don't wear it with shoes so that it doesn't get a lot of extra kind of wear and tear on it. But this was the yarn in the early, like I said, late 2000s, early 2010s kind of era. So I have been saving this, and this is what I am using for my project. And then obviously these are smaller socks, and I don't have a particularly large foot. I'm going to be making this size medium. I should have, because this is 412 yards. I should have some left. I've never used an entire skein of sock yarn on socks. This will make a lovely contrast color with this. A little visitor. Hi. You want to say hi? Pollyanna. Pockety pocket. Hello, beauty. How's my beauty? Oh, okay, here we go. Come on. All right, here we go. I was yelling at the kids, and she doesn't like it when I yell. So this will make a lovely contrast to go with this yarn when these socks are done. So I need to wind this up. I already, as I said, have purchased the pattern, and I'm going to get started 5 o'clock on Friday. And let's see what happens. Can I knit a pair of socks in a weekend? So I will take you along on this journey. If there are any trouble spots along the way, we will talk about them, and we'll see how it all comes out in the end. So please join me. So the first thing we're going to do is wind up this yarn. We have a minor problem. Yeah, you. So this is the dining room where I have my winder and cat and drying herbs and Swift over here. And we're going to try to wind this up. Now this has, as I obviously said, has been in my stash for years. You might find a little bit of carpet beetle damage. It happens, you know, as long as it's not like a major infestation. Should be fine, but we'll see. Ma'am, this is not going to work for me. Yeah, exactly.
Come on. Come on. Gotcha.
All right, so I wound it up. I didn't have any breaks, so that is great. That means no little critters have gotten in here and nibbled anything. So I am ready to go, waiting for 5 o'clock tomorrow, and that's when I'll cast on. All right, friends, I'm aware that this is not the best camera angle or setup in general, but it's just going to be for a few minutes because I'm about to go ahead and cast on my socks. It is 5:03 p.m. on Friday, so it is officially the weekend, and it's time to get started. I've got my pattern. I do usually like a center pole ball, but because I know I'm not going to use this whole skein and I want it to the cake to maintain its structural integrity, I'm going to go ahead and pull from the outside. And I am ready to get started. I am noticing a couple things about the pattern. First, you cast on 66 stitches. And everything in the world about sock knitting has said you should always cast on a multiple of 4. So I don't know what that's about, but I'm just going to go with it. The other thing is that instead of saying cable left and right, she says front and back. And I don't like that, and I'm going to screw it up, but hopefully not. I need to remember front is left. Back is right. So here we go. Time to get started. Just a quick update, friends. I've got about two. Sorry, it's not going to want to focus because the lighting is bad, but I've got about 2.5 hours worth of work on this, and I'm ready to start the heel. So, sock number 1, well underway. All right, we've made it to Saturday morning. I'm not wearing my mic, so apologies for the audio quality. Here's what I've got. So I did start the heel increases last night, but it was dark and it's a dark yarn, so I didn't get very far. We are going on a little family hike this morning. So Maryland has this ice cream trail, which is like a series of hiking trails that are near creameries, so that you do your hike and you get ice cream. So we're going to do one of those this morning. So I will get some knitting time on the drive there, and hopefully we'll have some better progress to show when we get back. All right, I am back from our little hike, and I finished the heel shaping in the car. So now I'm going to take a shower, and then I'm going to start the heel decreases, and then once I get to the foot, which is just ribbing and stockinette, and that's going to be super easy. So hopefully within a few hours. Also, just to be clear, I don't want you guys to think I'm like a super outdoorsy hiking kind of person. We do this once a year because then we get ice cream after, and it is not a particularly, actually last year the hike had a couple of like creek crossings and got a little messy. This year it was pretty chill. But I wouldn't mind hiking on my own, but my kids are definitely, especially the little one, not. He wears a net over his head because he doesn't like bugs. We are not really an outdoorsy family. All right, friends, I have clearly had my shower, and I'm just letting my hair do whatever it wants to do. And I wanted to chat about this sock as I am working on the foot. So it is 3:30. I guess about halfway done the foot, and I've got an hour and a half left before we hit the, there we go, 24-hour mark. So far this pattern it's fine. It's usually I mostly knit vanilla socks. I just wanted something a little more interesting and something that I didn't have to think about. I like having a sock pattern, like if I wanted to sit down and puzzle out how to knit these socks, sure, I could do that, but I just want something that I don't really have to think about. So the interesting part of this sock is the cable at the back. I didn't turn the light on, so and the heel, and that's all well and good. But that's it. The rest of the sock is stockinette and ribbing, and this is a 9-page pattern. 9 pages for a sock. Every row of the heel is written out. And it's just, it would have been so much simpler for her to write, put a marker here, increase between these markers until you have so many stitches. Every single row is written out. So I had to just like read through it all to figure out what it was I actually needed to do for this sock that did not require me to read through multiple pages for just the heel. That's fine. I guess that's how some people prefer their patterns. I just don't. I much prefer something more concise, especially when, again, we're talking about a sock that is almost entirely ribbing and stockinette. There's just one little column of cables and a little bit of heel shaping. I think I'm making good progress. I think I can have this first sock done maybe before the dinner hour. And then I would like to cast on the second sock tonight after dinner. We don't have anything planned tomorrow. Um, so yeah, today we were out for, I guess, about 3 hours. Um, and I was able to knit in the car. Um, but tomorrow we don't have anything other than me just making dinner. So, uh, yeah, I think I'm at a good pace. This is possible. It might actually get done. That's what my hair looks like now. I'm gonna just let it air dry. I put some like knot and frizz stuff and leave-in conditioner. And then I just try not to go outside because it is very humid right now. It's 90 degrees and the humidity's been in like the 60s-ish range all week. But I think, at least in terms of this first sock, things are going well. And I always, have a little trouble with second sock syndrome, but if I cast on right away, now having done the pattern once, it will be much easier. And I will say that the Bugga that I am using is a little thicker than a regular sock yarn. So we are well on the way in this sock knitting challenge. All right, friends, it is 6:13 p.m., so about 25 hours for the first sock. And I do think, as long as I get moving quickly, the second sock is going to go more quickly because I'm not going to have to look at the pattern. I basically know what I'm doing. I set things up. I increase, I know the number of stitches I'm increasing in the heel. I know the cable pattern. And then once that's done, it's just ribbing and stockinette. And I just kind of did my own regular toe shaping on this one as well. So I think sock number 2 is going to go even faster. It does look really narrow, but again, lots of ribbing. Color is beautiful. As I said, this is a long out of production skein of Bugga in leaf insect, and it is just beautiful, and it was so nice to work with. And I know it's not going to hold up well, but I'm going to forget that part and just concentrate on how soft it is, as it really is. It has 20% cashmere in it, so beautiful. I'm going to go cast on sock number 2 right away, get it set up, put the stitch markers in, and then maybe do a little bit of knitting outside. It's 88 degrees. It's still hot, but maybe I'll get a little evening knitting outside. I don't know. We'll see. Or I won't. Whatever the case may be. One down. Since I've come outside to knit a little, I'll show you my very sad garden. Now, I did have 6 tomatoes. 2 of them died. This one's half dead, but it has 1 tomato hanging on there, and that's it. I've had no luck with tomatoes the last couple of years. I don't know why. I've got a few cherry tomatoes growing. This squash, it's some kind of winter squash. I've got one big one. I've got another one. Maybe this guy will turn into something. I think there's one more around here. That's really the only thing that's grown. It's taken over the whole garden, fence. In the middle are my hot peppers. One of them died. One of them did nothing. Then I've got 3 that are there. But so far, I've got 1 singular purple jalapeno, and that's it. And then over here, I planted some kale and spinach. And it's growing, but I don't know which one it is. I mean, you can eat either one, so I guess it doesn't matter too much. And that was a green bean, and I've managed to harvest 3 entire beans. And then over here are some herbs. That's my basil. It's really the only thing I can grow successfully. I've already made 2 batches of pesto. There's some thyme. I've cut some thyme twice to dry. This is a garlic onion chive. This is some dill. My dill always looks real straggly, like he doesn't bunch up. This is some sage. I've also cut this twice to dry, so that's doing pretty well. And this is our mint for mojitos. All right, it's about 9 p.m. on Saturday, and I have finished knitting this cuff and leg, and now I should be starting the heel increases. I'm going to leave this for the morning because it's getting dark, and I'm going to go watch House of the Dragon, and I'm going to eat nachos, and I think I'll be well placed tomorrow to knit maybe the heel in the morning, and then the foot and the toe in the afternoon and evening. All right, happy Sunday, friends. It is about 2:15 p.m. I have the heel done on the second sock, so I don't have much left to do. One thing I did want to comment about this is the way that the pattern is written. You don't end up with even ribbing on either side of the instep. So if I follow the pattern directions as written, this side of the instep would start with a knit 2 and it would end with a purl 2. And I don't care for that, so I'm going to change it. I don't know why she would write it that way, but we are well on our way to finishing a pair of socks in a weekend. All right, friends, it is 4:07 p.m. on Sunday, and we are nearly at the end of our journey. So the only thing I have left to do is the toe for my second sock. And tonight we are planning to have a family movie night, and we're going to watch Sheep Detectives, I think, and that is what I'm going to work on during the movie. So I am pretty darn confident that I'm going to be able to finish this by the end of Sunday and officially knit a pair of socks in a weekend, but stay tuned for the final assessment. Ta-da! So I did it. I knit a pair of socks in just one weekend. So between Friday at 5 and Sunday at about 9, so just over 48 hours, I was able to finish my socks. So the finished pair used almost exactly half the skein. It was 225 yards. I would say that my usual socks are 1.5 to 2 inches taller. So I probably still could have done a traditional pair of socks in the weekend, but these are a little bit of a shorter sock. I definitely think that choosing a pattern that was just a little bit more than vanilla really helped with this. I have a lot of vanilla socks here and there on the needles. And I'll pick them up sometimes and do a few rows, but it's just not enough to hold my attention. And then I move on to something a little bit more interesting. And so I have lots of like half finished socks scattered about. This part of the sock was very easy to memorize once I got started, especially for the second sock, the heel shaping, easy to do. And then the foot, just a little bit more interesting than a plain vanilla, but not, nothing I have to keep going back and checking the pattern or anything. So I also basically ignored all of my other whips. So I have plenty of other whips. I don't think I might have put a row here or there on my other whips, but for the weekend, I really concentrated just on this project. And I had a lot more knitting time than I typically do in a weekend because we didn't have any, major plans other than leaving the house for a couple of hours to do that hike. I had a lot of knitting time and generally much more than I would on a weekend. But pair of socks in a weekend can be done. I don't know that I would repeat this challenge, but I do think it's a good way to kind of get myself some socks to wear when I can't seem to get myself to work on my vanilla socks. It's great to have vanilla socks. You can pick them up at any point, et cetera, but they're just not that interesting all the time. Um, I've already basically talked about the pattern itself, the Clog Socks Lite by Summer Lee. There were a couple of things that if I were to do it again, I might change. There is the thing I did change on the foot, which was that you did not end up with an even rib across the instep, at least for the size that I did. Based on my understanding of her pattern, you ended up with an uneven ribbing because you had a multiple of 4. So you started with a knit 2 and then you ended with a purl 2. And I did fix that on this, I think it's this sock. Is it this one? Yes. So I did fix that on this one. So I just have one purl column there and one purl column on the opposite side instead of having it uneven. What did I do on the other one? Yeah, so on the other side, you can see I've got a 2 purl column here. And then on this side, it's a knit 2. So that makes it look like this instep on this side is higher up. Is anybody going to notice that? No, but it was something that annoyed me. Overall, I enjoyed the pattern, but that kind of, that's something that's relatively easy to fix, to accommodate, to make sure things are even. It just seems a little bit odd not to do it. So as I said, that used about half the skein. So I've got all of this left now to use as a contrast color. For future socks, I did, as I said, buy 3 of Summer Lee's sock patterns when I bought the Clog Socks Lite. I also bought the Hibernal, which is a kind of mock cable-y one color sock. And then I bought the, was it Cider House socks, which I had my eye on for a while. And those do use, I want to say 3 colors. So now I'll be set up for some future sock knitting. And one last shout out to the Sanguine Gryphon Bugga. It really is, it's just so soft. It's so squishy. I know these socks are not going to be very sturdy or hardy or hard wearing, but they're very pretty. The color is very pretty. They're very soft. They've got just a tiny bit of a halo because, as I said, this is a 20% cashmere. So I do have another skein of Bugga in my stash. This one is Sundowner Moth. And again, probably will bust this out for another special pair of socks at some point. But this is my last one, the last Sanguine Gryphon Bugga that I'll ever get to use. So I'm going to keep her marinating in there for a while. All right, so that was my big can I knit socks in a weekend experiment? And it turns out I can. Will I do it again? I don't know. Maybe. As I said, it seems like it might be a good way to get myself to actually finish some socks. But at heart, I love working on multiple projects at once. So it's not something I'm going to do frequently for sure. But maybe in the future, when I've got a weekend with not too much going on, maybe I'll try it again. Bang out a pair of socks in a weekend. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining me for this experiment and this video. If you enjoyed it or found it entertaining, I hope that you will give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe. New knitting videos here every Saturday. If you're looking for me on social media, you can find me on Ravelry and Instagram as Media Peruana, and I will see you soon in another video.